Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Welcome to another episode of The Truth About Love with me, Mizi, Wahid, and the wonderful.
Lisa Surihani. Oh, thank you.
Okay, so
Thank you.
I hope you've been enjoying our discussions lately about love. This is indeed a very big, broad topic to talk about, many areas to cover, but I believe we've done our best in trying to outline over 15 sessions the many different areas that needs to be addressed regarding love.
Yeah.
And whatever stage that you're in, whether you're single and not looking, single and healing, just got married, just having kids, married for 10 years, wanting to remarry. I think there's a bit of something for everyone, inshallah. And I hope you're just enjoying listening through
To our
this.
little chit chat and our thoughts about
Yes, our
all
journey.
of these various issues that we're covering, or well, rather topics that we're covering. And I think today is something that is really interesting, and it's going to be so relatable to so many others out there. So have a listen.
So the topic today, Lisa, is where in the world is my future husband?
Where in the world is my future husband?
Yeah.
Oh, I mean, it's not just for the our fellow Ukhtis. It is also for our fellow brothers as well.
Where in the world is my future wife?
My future wife, right?
And this is not normally the question that people ask me, to be honest, but I know this is in their head. They're probably thinking it. Like some of them, they're like tired of waiting.
Oh,
some
but
of them,
do they approach it to you in a different manner? Sort of like, to be honest, Ustaz, like I'm actually really ready to settle down, but I just haven't met anyone yet.
yes,
Like,
that's very common. That's very common.
They always say, they always share that with you.
Yes,
Do they kind of like ask you tips on where to find their partners?
Not really, but some of them have actually come to me and said, Ustaz, if you know of anyone who you think is good, yeah, and suitable for me, let me know. I'm open. So, but I've never.
Have you ever
really,
done that though?
I'm not really into that, to be honest. No, I'm not really into that.
Okay.
I think
I'm not too.
I think it could be because I'm scared of what if it doesn't work. Even more frightened, that if it works initially and then ends up not working out, I would feel really. I would share the guilt or the blame for some reason. I know I'm not supposed to, but I have a feeling that I might feel that way, and that's what maybe I'm trying to avoid.
I totally understand. Like, like I have been many a times where people come up to me, friends, guy friends, girlfriends, and say like, hey, like, tak boleh ke recommend siapa-siapa, or and I'm like, I'm really sorry. I wish I could help, but I have a certain principle about this. I don't do that. Like, I don't try and pair people up. I have a friend though who does, and it's almost like it's like she's so good at it somewhat, and then sometimes like some of them do end up in marriages, some of them end up breaking up, and it makes her feel awful. But then it's just at the end of the day, I do know that, with regards to my friend, her heart is in the right place. She's just trying to make people happy, even though it's the whole playing Cupid, where you are trying to pair one person to the other, and if it does work out, it makes you feel like, wow, like I helped these two people get together. But if it doesn't work out, it's like, ooh,
Yeah. I think I have played that role indirectly. Like when people go to my events, my programs, they meet each other there, and then they end up getting married. Or they are my volunteers, and then they meet each other, and then they end up getting married. Those things have happened, but I don't think I played a pivotal role in pairing them up.
You were just like, you were just instrumental in the whole scenario.
And I think it's all God's arrangements as well. I mean, I've even had, some of my speakers, the Asatiza, who had students through my programs or participants from my events that they just got to know from there, and then now they're happily married. I think I did do. I think so. Those are interesting things, lah.
Yeah, I wanted to ask, like, in cases like that, would you get pahala?
I would like to think so, because because it's like you are helping two people do something noble, something good, something that is a sunnah. So anything where you play a part, even by encouraging, you are
Even though
already getting rewarded.
but if say if it's like an indirect thing, and there's like unless like, because I'm not too sure, like, you know, like how do you start off all of your events and how you start off your forums and stuff, like, you know, I'm not too sure what your du'as are, what your niyas, or what you place your niyas to, right? You know, because everything has to be present, like with niyah, as we met, like as we discussed also before. So like if you kind of include that in your niyyah, I suppose then it's like sort of like, oh, and it does work out.
In all honesty, I've never included that in my niyyah.
Okay, all right.
So
but now that you think about it,
maybe, yeah.
Yeah. So if my event is gonna help two people meet and build a masjid together, pemudahkanlah or something like that,
why
right?
not?
You know? Yeah.
Thank you for suggesting that.
Then you get pahala.
Yeah. So I think actually before we go to the other stuff, Lisa just raised a good point. And I think through events, that's another way you can find this potential future spouse.
Right.
Through
On
volunteering.
how and where to look for your future spouse.
I think it's about remaining active, going out there, being participative in community stuff, volunteering, making yourself available, helping other people. Sometimes you will get helped when you help other people. I really believe in that. When you help others, Allah will help you. And we underestimate that, and we just sit down and wait, or we try to help ourselves only. Like we spend a lot of time, and then we get so frustrated because everything we've been working on is not working out. So I think that's something that also needs to be reviewed in terms of how much you actually, put in effort in terms of trying to help other people. Okay, so Lisa, as someone who facilitates nikah ceremonies as a night qadi here in Singapore, we call it, and I've done this for so many couples. Lately, Lisa, over the last maybe 2 years, a lot of my couples admittedly say that they met each other on social media or they met each other on a dating app. So dating app. So this is becoming more and more common. It's trendy, it's convenient, it's an alternative platform. When everything else is not working, why not just go where they think everyone else is, probably, right? So do you have friends who have gotten together because of social media or because of some app? Obviously, you and Yusri did not meet that way. So.
No, actually, like maybe because it's the generation that I'm in. I don't so far have yet my amongst my peers that actually ended up with anyone via social media. They would have either had been in a long-term relationship, or they met at an event, or they are acquaintances because their circles of friends happen to even at 6 degrees of separation, and then they happen to know. But dating apps or social media, no. Okay, I have made a lot of friends from social media, you being one of them.
Yeah. I'm glad we got to know each other.
Yes, mashallah.
Okay, so for social media, it's actually very similar to the things you mentioned, actually. It's not like random. You go and search for someone random on social media. It doesn't work that way most of the time. Okay. They would tell me, Ustaz, I saw her at a wedding, and then we are acquaintances, or we have mutual friends. They say. Okay. So wedding meaning lots of photos on social media, right? So start searching lah. If somebody tag this person, I found her or I found him, and then that's how they get to know each other. Or they volunteer for a particular group, and then the organization posts up photos, and they're like, okay, look for this person. This is the person. And then luckily the person either was tagged, or the person commented, or the person liked. It's a bit of stalking to be done, but technically not meet like strictly from social media. They met in person, or they saw the person in real life in front of them, but they then searched and made it happen in social media.
Right.
There
Right.
also have been stories where the couples tell me, Ustaz, I actually went to school with her in secondary school, high school.
But we never
And
spoke to each other.
never spoke to each other, yes. And then,
Aw.
this is very recent, actually. And then I went on social media and then I found her. And so I decided to drop her a message. Initially, it was a bit cold, and then we started talking every day. And then after that, I think 6 months down the road, we decided to meet. 1 year later, decided to get married. So, it happens in that way. So far, to be honest, I've not met yang cakap, oh, I was randomly surfing on social media to nampak this person's account.
Yeah. I would think that if it's the social media route, it's probably like, you would have somewhere or another, some connection somewhere through the 6 degrees of separation. Like it's either that, like you said, it's either mutual friends or, might be like two circle of friends who happen to know each other or, something like that. Like there's got to be some connection somewhere. However, it's such different times, obviously, for me, I'm quite curious with the whole dating app thing. I've never used a dating app.
No, that is more random.
Right. So how does it work? You have a profile in this dating app of yourself, obviously.
So this is interesting. Okay, let me tell you something first.
Okay.
So people have been asking me for quite some time, Lisa, Ustaz, is dating app halal? Is dating app halal? Can we use this? And I'm like, guys, I've been married for 9 years, 10 years back then. Like, how am I supposed to know? And then they said, Ustaz, download lah. I said, crazy. My wife find out I download a dating app, then what's going to happen? I said, is research. Research your head. Research for what? Just joke about that. But what's interesting is this. Recently, my wife was the one who downloaded it because she was helping someone to find a partner who is almost giving up, and she wants to help the person. And with that person's permission, she created a profile for that person.
Right.
And you know what's funny? This nowadays, every now and then, and when I see my wife on the phone, and when I take a peek, she's like looking at random men's photos. Like, hey, what are you looking? No, I'm helping this person. Oh yeah, okay. And but she's.
So she will do. So okay. Wait, hold on. But in this case, your wife is helping out, doing the, like for the better word, shopping for the. Oh God, shopping. It's. I mean, I don't know how else to say it. Surveying. Okay, surveying is more apt. Surveying for her friend, but I'm guessing she would know her friend
really well,
inside out, to understand the kind of guy that her friend might like, I guess.
But
then her friend is not willing to do.
She's just tired. The friend is tired, and I think a lot of people listening in might be able to
understand
resonate.
this.
Yeah, because if you've done it for quite a while, I've heard people, they've been using the app for 4 years and no success. So you can understand. I think some people after a year they might give up. It's like, there's no point. And it's really not because there aren't enough potential partners, but because nobody seems to fit their criteria sometimes, or the ones they actually like don't like them back. Because usually these apps, you can actually tell whether this person likes you or not.
Of course.
So
I mean, it's like social coding, right?
Like, so what I wanted to say was, okay, so what my wife does is that whoever that she thinks the friend would like, she would, like shortlist. And then they would start messaging. And then my wife would, first thing she said, okay, hi, I'm actually not this person, but I'm this person's friend, and I'm here helping her out. So I have a few questions. If you don't mind, if you really like my friend, based on her profile and her photos and whatever, then help answer some questions. And then if the guy says okay, then you'll go. My first question was like, aren't any of the guys feeling awkward that they're talking to someone else, not the actual person? No, actually the guys are quite okay. The ones who genuinely are interested and serious to get to know this person, they're like, okay, I don't mind answering a question on behalf that is being asked on behalf of the actual person. So
wait, hold on. Apart from pictures, what other info would be on the...
Okay, so I think there's this one app that's quite popular, a Muslim app. It's called Muzmatch, M-U-Z-M-A-T-C-H. So it's one of the biggest, I think, amongst the Muslim dating apps. Okay. So it's very unique because I saw that they even highlight things like, do I pray? Do I eat halal? Things like that. Do I drink? Pun ada tahu, do I drink? Do I smoke? Am I practicing or not? So they have a lot of those kind of infos, and even like
So
your
it's quite
detail.
there's a lot of information about your biodata
Mm.
in there. Okay.
And to a certain extent, how religious you are, and also it talks about it tells you which religious sect or company
Wow.
you come from. Yeah, you see.
Wow. That so it's very detailed. This particular app is very detailed.
Yeah,
Okay.
but of course you can get to know anyone from around the world. And so, for example, this my wife's friend's account, you know, a lot of men from outside of Singapore are actually very interested and, you know, get to know and talk and so on and so forth.
Mm-hmm.
So what's my take on dating apps? I think there should always be certain principles in anything we do. Okay. But let's start with values first. So when you talk about values, it means I cannot be with someone who smokes, for example.
Okay.
Like you disagree with that very, very strongly. And so
Right.
you say this upfront, and even you can even tell because everybody declares, right? Everybody declares their status. So it cuts the time by half, you know, because you've already covered a lot of things. I don't need to ask a lot of things because you've already told me a lot of stuff.
So it makes the searching somewhat easier because you're
Right.
narrowing down the searches
Exactly.
in accordance to your preference.
Exactly. So you can actually
Right.
filter, you know, like any other search engine, you can filter and then, you know, select and deselect certain stuff.
So interesting. Okay.
Yeah. So when you know what your values are, like you don't like somebody who drinks. They're Muslim, but they drink. Ada, you know, some of them they declare that. So no, it goes against completely. So we reject all of that. So I think it's important to know all of these first. If you're not sure, Ustaz, what is Ahmadi? What is the difference between Shafi'i and Hanafi, for example? Can we coexist peacefully if we are married together? These things you need to read up more. That's my recommendation and suggestion. But then when it comes to principles, what makes a dating app halal? I think the people behind this, they've probably done their very best. They're trying to make it as halal as they possibly can, but cannot do everything. You know,
Okay.
I've met companies that actually do matchmaking, Lisa, in Singapore.
Okay.
Who wanted to work with me.
I see.
But when I look through the model, it is very halal. You know, like even their first date, one of the staff from this company will accompany. So it's three persons in a date, you know. So it's never
Wow.
just two of them.
Right. Right.
So they try to make it very, very halal. But I look at the model and say it's not sustainable. Like, how do we continually do that? Like, it's going to take a lot of time, a lot of manpower, a lot of money involved.
Yeah.
And the cost is really high. Like, how many people can actually afford this? Subscribe to a dating app. It's only a few bucks a month, I think. I don't know. I don't know the numbers, but I'm pretty sure it's very affordable. So, you know, so you don't want to make getting to know someone very difficult. You want to make marriage easier, correct? You want to keep the cost low. But you also don't want to make it to a point where people play around with it, play around with other people's lives. So I think you need to read up about every app and understand how stringent they are about certain things. But your principle should be when I show photos, what kind of photos am I comfortable with? You know, when I share information publicly that is very personal to me, like how much should I share and how much should I refrain from sharing and keep it for those who are actually very, very serious and getting to know me and I start to like them and begin to trust them
Right.
after a period of time and then I start opening up to them.
Yes.
So to me, these things are important. You know, you cannot reveal too much, I think, in every sense of the word, and retain some information for yourself first before you feel the time is right.
Maybe it should be sort of like there should be sort of like a few tiers before you can actually get to a lot more information about oneself.
Yeah.
Like, you know, as with any app, any kind of social media app, like, you know, if you're in public domain, that's, you know, like you kind of risk really exposing yourself out there with informations, pictures, and you see, like, you know, one may argue about how, you know, one can be a bad influence to you, etc., etc. And I think, you know, like based on what you're sharing with me, you're kind of in a way helping to advise and guide our listeners out there, you have to be sure of what you want, what you don't want, what you're willing to share,
Yes.
what you're not willing to share, and not allow for all of these external elements to control your life. Because the minute it does, then that may not be a very good thing for you. So I guess it's somewhat debatable when it comes to like, if one asks, is it good or bad? Is it halal or no? As with anything, if it comes to a point where it memudaratkan, if it comes to a point that if it's that, then it's something that you're going to have to tell yourself with willpower that you're going to have to detach from and refrain from. But if it's not, and then by all means proceed. So there's a lot of pros and cons, I think, when it comes to, based on what you're sharing with me, because this is totally like, uncharted territory for me, because I'm like, wow, like, oh, this is how it works. Well, wow, you can be that detailed. And that almost makes me feel like that gave me goosebumps, honestly. Like, I felt very vulnerable and very open. Like it was almost like I had no protection. It felt like that. It felt like it was like it's easy for anyone to attack. Yeah, even though the information that I'm sharing is not
too revealing,
not dangerous information, but I don't know what people can do with that kind of information, if you know what I mean. Like, because we have no control as to how other people act with our kind of information. But having said that, like, I remember the conversation that we had, like, in the previous episodes about how important it is to understand, to start with intention, with good niyyah, which means that has to be coupled with a lot of supplications, has to be coupled a lot with a lot of du'as. So I think, like, maybe the kinds of supplications that can help you move forward, if I may share, and this I get a lot from actually Ustaz Mizi, when it comes to the kind of du'as that we make, maybe it's sort of like, Ya Allah, Ya Tuhanku, you know what's in my heart. If I may say it in a layman way, you know what's in my heart. I wish to settle down with someone who is good for me, who can, make me remain steadfast in my deen, who puts importance into akhirah, who puts importance into qiyamah, whilst at the same time, if it's the best for me, like, because you know best, because Allah, you know best whether it is the best for me. So like, I'm not too sure what the future holds for me. You know that. As and in Islam, we believe not just in takdir, qadar, we believe also in usha. But in my usha, don't make my usha make me forget about being a good Muslim. Like how, like, you get too engrossed with the idea of, like, oh, I gotta settle down. If not, like, it's the end for me. But Allah knows best, right? So I think when we look, when we turn back into what is the niyat and what is the dua, I think in that sense, maybe our heart and mind can manage that better, maybe.
That's true. I think I totally agree. I was about to bring up the niyat thing, but before I go there, I want to touch on something you mentioned earlier, which is feeling vulnerable going on these dating apps. I believe there are many people out there who feel the same way, and maybe that's why they're not making this part of the usra and effort. Because people are like, why don't you just go? I mean, everybody's doing it, and they're like, no, I don't feel safe. I don't feel secure.
I don't feel comfortable.
Yeah. So, I'm pretty sure when you said that, a lot of people like nodding their heads and like, yeah, I'm too scared to go there. But it is an option. And yes, talking about intentions is very, very true. I'll give you an example. One of my former staff, is getting married soon, and I did an interview with them, and they found each other on a dating app. So my former staff, a lady, she said, Ustaz, when I downloaded the app, it is only with one intention. I want to find a husband. Okay, very clear. There's no playing around. There's no I want to like date a few people or check out a few people. No, it's like if someone is serious, then that's it. And you know what she did, Lisa? The moment she found this one guy, and they talked maybe for I think a day, if I'm not wrong, and they just like clicked. And then she said, okay, if you are serious, let's get to know each other outside the app. So I'm going to delete the app. I'm going to remove my profile from this app. I'm not going to come back here ever again. That's how serious I am, she said. And the guy said, okay, let's go. And now they're getting married soon. So to me, that level of focus in terms of your intention is really powerful. It's like, I'm here for one goal and I found it. I'm leaving and I'm never coming. She's burning the bridge to the app. She's not like keeping it just in case this guy doesn't work out. No, I'm gonna try my best to make this work, and I'm gonna get to
So she put ultimate faith and trust in her, in the sort of like the response and the answer from her dua. Wow. Wow. Yeah. I hope to meet her one day.
And she'll be happy to meet you. So this is something I believe is very common. I think you just need to know your boundaries, Lisa. I think when people ask are dating apps halal, it's about knowing your boundaries. So how far do you go? Because then it becomes like a question of dating, which I think we're going to talk about in one of the coming episodes. But in general, just getting to know somebody, in my opinion, is still permissible as long as you know your boundaries.
Right.
The next thing we want to talk about is really about having realistic expectations. Whatever your method is, whether you do go to an app, whether you do go on social media actively searching, or updating your status, making it clear that you're single, so that people would actually, approach you.
Right.
I want people to have a realistic expectation about the waiting period. Okay, the delays, the rejection that you have to deal with, and the disappointments. And sometimes there can be more than one disappointment.
Wow.
And when we're not realistic, when we think that, the first attempt will always be a successful attempt, that to me is not very realistic. Okay, if you waited for 1 year after you graduated and you think, that's it, nobody wants me, or it's never going to happen, I think that's not realistic. Okay, so you need to be very realistic about your chances and what may actually happen in the future. So,
well, if I may share, a friend of mine I do know tried, I say tried because I think he's given up with the whole dating app idea. So he had he gave it a shot. He's a divorcee, so he thought, I wasn't too sure why he was not doing the conventional, the usual, friend meet friend and recommendations and stuff like that. But then maybe he felt, if this is the modern day way, I'm gonna give this a try. So in his case, on the app, it starts off well. It starts off like very nice, and like and they both of them would be keen to meet each other, but it's always like, okay, so like the first one would be cannot accept his past because he was a divorcee, has a kid, so cannot. But I guess maybe it dawned upon her later that maybe not, or something like that. So disappointment number one. Then after that, another try. It was the scenario was that he felt that she was a bit too. He felt that he couldn't accept the way she was after meeting her. He said that
in what way?
He felt that she was a bit too desperate. That was scenario number two. Scenario number three was that the issue was still about her being intimidating. And then after 3 disappointments, and then he said, you know what, I'm done. I'm just, So I said that, is it really, like you're done, or are you phobic from the whole dating idea because of what you went through, because he's quite adamant to sort of like, I think he said that I guess I'll just die a single father.
Sounds like
So
someone who's given up.
yeah, very much so. So like these things happen, like like the thing is, I don't know, Allah walam, I don't know whether this is like the what is written for him in La Mahfuz, but then like we never know what happens tomorrow. Like for all he suddenly wakes up and he feels like, you know what, I'm going to give it a shot one more time, or I don't really know that. But then the thing is, like when you raise about delays, rejections, disappointments, these are real. This can happen, whether or not it is true dating apps, whether or not it's true social media, even when it's sort of like the old school way. Shall we call it the old school way?
Yeah, let's go with that, because everything else is modern. So.
Like even if it's the old school way, these things can happen. What would you like to share with our listeners about what happens then when these things happen, when the delays happen? Like kenapa lambat sangat? When the rejections happen, am I not good enough actually? Like, is it me? Or like when it comes to the disappointments, like macam, why do I always end up with Mr. Wrong?
Macam title movie, the next movie. Why do I end up with Mr. Wrong? Actually, okay, I wanted to touch on something you said. Oh yes, you gave an example of a single parent divorcee.
Yeah.
And I think I overlooked that because a lot of what we spoke about were like people who were single, never married before. Right. I think we have left behind a very significant number of people who are either widowed or divorced and are now looking again or are interested to get into the game again, to find a partner that they can spend the rest of their life with. And it's unfair to not mention them. So thank you for giving that example. I think that's very, very important. So now delays, right? Okay. I used to do a program called Singleness, the Risks of Waiting and Rejection. Singleness, the Risks of Waiting and Rejection. So in that program, what I did was I spoke about how, generally speaking, a lot of women, they risk waiting, and a lot of men, they risk rejection.
Oh, do you mean waiting like you've been dating for so long and the guys never pop the question?
Not really. Could be, but it's not limited to that. It's just sometimes it's waiting for something to happen. Waiting for someone to come to me and approach me. Waiting for that colleague that you have a crush on to ask you out. Waiting for your best friend from high school to actually start messaging you, or just waiting for something, and it's not happening.
That's when you have a targeted person that or rather like you know what I mean, like it's got to be the person that you actually like.
Yes,
that's why you're waiting.
Correct. There's a lot. Most of the times it's like that. It's not like waiting for nothing. But there are also people who are just waiting, like anyone, somebody, he's reading, I'll take him, like.
Really?
No, just kidding.
No. But you could be right though. Like that's not impossible. I think. Like but
I would be advising the person to be careful, because you're bordering on desperation.
Right.
You're so desperate that anybody who comes in, any guy, just message me, just ask me anything, I'll be with you. I'll marry you.
Yeah, because bear in mind, you the plan is to spend the rest of your life with this guy, right? Or with the girl. Right.
So, Lisa, I said most women risk waiting because they are the ones normally who are not making the first move. They are the ones waiting for the men to make the move. Correct, Lisa? This is what's happening in most of the cases. I would say 85% of the cases, the women are waiting for the men to be the gentlemen that they expect them to be and to make the first move. The Yeah, the men, however,
Okay.
they risk rejection because when they are expected to be the ones making the first move, they do it, and a lot of times they get turned down, they get rejected, they get friend zoned. All of those things happen. So men risk rejection, and it hurts a lot. Lisa,
Yeah.
just a few days ago, I did counseling for a guy. Guess how old he is? He's 17 years old. And he's so heartbroken because this girl that he really, really likes, and he finally got comfortable talking to her, eventually just breaks up with him. And as a 17-year-old, he was crying throughout most of the 1 hour call. Like he just can't take it. Like, why? And we
I'm
can
so
laugh about it and
sorry.
say, oh, I mean, 70, this is what do they call it? Monkey love or whatever they call it, right? Puppy love.
Right, right.
But
Monkey love.
in a way,
Okay.
puppy love.
Okay.
And then you're like,
Right.
nothing. But
Right, right, right,
when
right.
you
But
think
doesn't
back,
mean that it's unreal. Like
it
whatever it
doesn't
is that
mean
he's
that
feeling is real.
I could feel his pain,
Oh God,
as
I'm
I was
so
talking.
sorry.
But Alhamdulillah, I think at the end, he felt a lot better. And we started talking about other stuff to get his mind off of it as well. But the point here again is that men, they risk rejection, and some men, they're so scared of failure that they never approach even a single person because of their own insecurities, feeling inferior. They feel like you're not good enough, you're not good looking enough, you're not successful enough,
Right.
whatever, right? So sometimes this is where a lot of people remain single for a long time because one party does not want to make a move, the other party is just waiting and waiting and waiting for nothing.
Right.
So, Lisa, what are your thoughts on waiting and delays and stuff?
I'm conservative, Mizi. Like I mean, you mentioned about like why they're waiting is because you know all our lives we are raised and told that the proper thing to do is to you let the guy go to you, not you go to the guy. There's a Malay saying for it also if I'm not mistaken, like jangan pipi to sorong-sorong or something like that, jaga marwah diri and stuff like that, right? So um I'm not really too sure how that's been looked at in this day and age. But then like I when it comes to sort of like making a move, I never in my life, I think I never did. I did say hi to Yusri on BBM, but I said hi to everybody else as a PR thing, as an artist to a producer. But he made the first move by adding me on BBM, and
Yeah,
then and the
I
rest
remember
is
that story.
history. Yeah, and the rest is history. So in that sense, like he made the first move and he asked me out. I didn't ask him out. You know what I mean?
So
Yeah.
the thing is now, Lisa, some women are asking me, Ustaz, is it okay if I make the first move?
What are your thoughts about that? Because
No, I,
I
I want to know, as a woman, was that something you ever considered doing at all?
oh wow, like that's
That you really like somebody, but that person barely notices you or just likes you as a friend?
uh to make the first move, maybe not, but then if you I don't know. I mean, it's like that's it's a tough one for me to shake off, I think. Like
But never
I
crossed your
suppose
mind. It
I
never crossed
suppose
your mind.
yeah, not really. Like
Mm.
when a person that you like uh approaches you,
Mhm.
in like in my case, like when Yusri approached me, um I reciprocated, as in I responded to that move by putting on a certain charm, in hoping that he may feel attracted to me as well, and still being myself lah.
Mhm.
And still being myself. But then like to actually initiate, I don't know whether I could have in the past, to be
Yeah.
honest. Like, and the thing is like
Do you think it's not normal to do that?
I think it's because of what is ingrained in
Mm.
my mind. Like it's that sort of belief and that principle that has been instilled in me from a
Mm.
very long time. That
Mm.
again, I think That's why I see certain things like, I feel like I'm Jurassic in this world. I feel like I think I'm pretty old fashioned.
Okay,
Yeah.
so let's talk about something right now. Let's talk
Okay.
about our Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam and Sayyidatina Khadija radiallahu anha. You know that story, right? That Khadija was the one who initiated. Khadija admired the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam before he was messenger. Of course, he was like 25 years old, but he was well known for his amazing character. He was trustworthy. Everybody loved his kindness, his generosity, and everything about him was amazing. But here was Khadija, a 40-year-old woman, divorced, and extremely successful. She was married before, extremely successful. And she made the move.
How did
And
she make the move?
she made the move by getting a family member to ask the Prophet ﷺ. She didn't make a direct move. She got someone to ask whether he was interested. And so,
was the family member a woman or a man?
I can't recall exactly, but it's a cousin, if I'm not wrong. Yeah, I think it was a man. So, and the Prophet ﷺ said,
so
yes,
she was she was smart about it.
Yeah.
In a sense where she maintained that, sort of like, what do you think?
I think she was brave enough because she knows that this is somebody that she really likes, somebody that she could spend the rest of her life with. Okay, but she of course did not go direct. I think if you want to talk about being prim and proper,
right,
I think you don't go direct. I think that's a bit too
well, if we want to base it on the stories of the prophets, right? Like if we base it on the stories on the prophets, like Khadija, she radiallahu anha, she was I guess her way had the wisdom behind that was that like she did not she was still prim and proper about it, but she showed that it was okay to exercise that certain sort of honesty to sharing that she is interested.
Yes.
But
and to check
checking
first
whether or not
the Prophet was interested. Yeah.
Right.
So,
mashallah. Wow.
So now I want to bring it back to today's context, okay? And taking Khadija as an example, and the profile that I mentioned about her. Today, Lisa, statistics in Singapore they show that there are more female graduates than male graduates. And career-wise, women are catching up very, very quickly in terms of the corporate world. Now, they're still behind men, but they're catching up very quickly. Now, I want to imagine a scenario where the woman is of a stature like Khadija. She is successful in her own way. She's smart, she's intelligent, and she is bold enough and brave enough to actually tell somebody that, hey, I like you. If you're interested, let me know, and then we can work something out.
Right?
And I think it might move towards that. And this is the fact that I'm getting more questions like this, Lisa, like, Ustaz, is it okay for me to make a move on this guy that I like?
Meaning there is that means there is a growth of boldness in women in wondering, like, wait, hold on a second, like, why can I just make the first move?
Yeah,
I'm interested in this guy, and I would like him to know. I just want to know whether he's interested. Right.
Yeah. Right. So I think we're going through a phase where there's a transition here, and I'm not saying switching of roles completely, but I think women are going to be more bold and they're going to be braver. They're going to feel like, what's there to lose, really? I'm going to make a move.
And they can still be prim and proper about it.
Yes.
Like the way Khadija was.
Yeah, go through a mutual friend or something, right? There's no harm.
Wow.
Okay, but one thing I want to say, remember I said that men have always been risking rejection, the pain of rejection. The women who want to start doing this, you need to also be prepared for that. Meaning, if the guy you like says, I'm not interested, how are you going to deal with that? Is that the end of everything? Are you going to give up on everything just because the guy says no? Or are you going to keep going? So this advice really, Lisa, is for all men and women.
Right.
If you want to make the first move, you need to be ready for whatever the answer that may come.
You know, I read something on Twitter just
Mhm.
now that it is not the stress that kills you, it's your reaction to it that does.
Powerful.
And I think this somewhat like can be, you know, adapted to this in the sense where, you know, like we are gonna have to like share the narrative that, you know, like it's great, you know, we have now highlighted that if you're going to initiate a move, it will go either way. It's either that he's going to respond or she's going to respond, or she is not going to respond in a way that you favor, and how you react to it is what's important. I think it's okay to acknowledge that you're crushed at the fact that that person that you have approached does not feel the same way, but that at the same time, I think you can also divert that energy for it to be sort of like, actually that's helpful, at least you let me know and I can now move on, you know. So I think how we react to whatever it is, like whatever situation there may be in life, whether or not it is a good situation or even if it's calamity, our reaction to it is what matters a lot more than the actual event itself. Yeah.
Whatever you're saying just reminded me of a tweet that I did maybe in 2018. Teringat.
Wow.
Okay,
Okay.
but
Share
it's
that.
not specifically on this, but I said the job interview you didn't nail, that person you admire who turned down your friendship, that
Oh,
marriage that
I
didn't
remember
last,
that.
that business which failed halfway. It's better to have tried than forever being robbed of the certainty of knowing how things could have turned out.
Sahih.
So I think
Couldn't have said it better. Yeah.
the bigger pain could actually be I didn't try, and now forever on my deathbed I'm wondering what
But
if
what
I
if?
actually
Right. Right. Oh, you're right. You know, oh, I suddenly remember a story about a fellow. This is way before I got married. So a person approached me, and this was during the days of BlackBerry and BBM, and we were friends. We were working under the same management, and then he was very gentleman about it. He said to me that, you know, like, Lisa, I am very attracted to you. My mom likes you very much. Uh, I'm really interested and I would like to ask you, as I'm wondering whether you're keen in wanting to take this friendship that we have to the next level. Um, and because of the way he approached me, because of how gentlemanly he was, I really respected that. Like, I really felt that, you know, this is really bold. And also at the same time, it was very prim and proper the way he approached me. There was no sort of like, it was not flirtatious. It was not, you know, he was not trying to use, what's the word? He was not sweet talking. He was proper, you know?
No
And
lame
then
pickup
I,
lines as well.
right. Cinta itu buta, you know? Okay. So I said to him, I said, you know, like, I really appreciate you reaching out to me this way. It was really prim and proper of you to do so. And I have to say, however, that I don't feel the same way for you. I hope that this does not affect our friendship in any way. You know, I do, however, wish you all the best. I wish your mom all the best, you know, like, only good praise for all of you. And then, you know, I think he took a while, perhaps maybe to digest what I sent to him. Not that very long, actually. Like, I think within that same 10 minutes, maybe same 5 minutes even, he responded back and he said, he was like, okay, thank you so much. Like, I really appreciate it that you responded to me. And I think, you know, like, that response for me helped him, you know, like, he got the clarity that he needed.
Yes.
It may have not been favorable to him at that point of time, but he appreciated my honesty. I think, you know, like, it probably dawned upon him. He said that, it probably dawned upon him that, you know, like, if I had been dishonest and I sort of like, oh, wanted to give it a shot and see how things go, if I was, you know, maybe that would have not been very great eventually, like,
Mhm.
so the fact that I was honest from the very beginning, he appreciated that. And now he's happily married with a beautiful daughter,
Mhm.
and I mean, and when we see each other now, we're like, oh, hello, hello. We're really civil.
Mhm.
So I think if you, like your friend, like when you set your niyat right, and when you're sure, when knowing what you want, what you don't want, and being well prepared of, like, hey, there will be times like it may be favorable, and there may be times that there can be rejections,
Mhm.
and it's all written. It's if it was not meant to be, maybe there's something better for me,
Mhm.
so I think it's the way we react to things, right?
Exactly. Beautifully said. Thank you for sharing that story as well, Lisa. I know some men would still find that very painful, very hurtful, but your friend there was very professional about it. I mean, it seems like he was very clear about what he wanted. He conveyed it clearly as
Right.
well.
Mm-hmm.
And when it didn't favor him, like you said, he took it well, hopefully. And, the fact that he's moved on now, happily having his own family, So these are good signs, and we can only wish the best for those who have been rejected, because it's painful and it takes time to heal. Like I said, there are some men who sometimes being rejected once and they give up on love completely.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So I think that's why it's important to always, even when you love somebody and that person doesn't know yet, don't love too hard, because you don't even know whether it's going to be reciprocated, you know.
That's
So,
one, but there's also scenarios whereby, like, just because you may be getting a certain attention, be wary about how you react to that person. It's almost like you're giving that person hope.
hope, yeah. I think
Like
that I
that
think
tends to
women
happen.
need to read this more, like,
Yeah.
because men, okay, you advise the women that, right? I'm gonna advise the men again. Men can, we have a
Okay.
problem with it. Whenever a woman is nice, being nice, the men sometimes translate that as she's flirting with me, or she likes me. I need to make a move soon. And most cases, the women are just being nice because they are trained to be nice, or they believe in being nice
Okay.
to people. But men sometimes look at it as, hey, this is quite cool. And then when they make a move, they're like, hey, masa kena friend zone kan? When actually it wasn't anything except that she was just being a good friend.
Mm.
So it's hard for men to sometimes look at it objectively. So what your friend did is a really good example that perhaps many men can follow. If you're really interested, ask early. Don't wait for 1 or 2 years. You think she's flirting with you forever. Just ask early, um, if there's any chance. And if she says yes, then good. If she says no, then also good. Like I said in my tweet, and at
Right.
least you will not be forever robbed of the certainty of knowing what could have
Right.
been. So might as well just get it done and over with, and then you move on.
Yeah, I think it's important for, be it men or women, to be honest, even in their social cues, in their reactions,
Mm.
like you, because, like, there is that potential in letting the other person to misread your social cues as being response, as being, sort of like the acceptance to their feelings towards you. It has to be clear, not just verbally, but even also with the way you act and the way you talk to the person. Um, you know, uh, one of the things that I do appreciate about my beginnings with Yusri was that, with the both of us, we weren't exactly sure from the very beginning whether this was going to end up in a marriage.
Mm.
But when we spoke to each other in the beginning, um, we were friends. We weren't flirting with each other. We were actually sort of like, I think our approach to each other was was clear enough until the point where in his on his side, when feelings started to develop, and he was actually honest about it, which allowed for me to understand, and I was also honest about like in my case, I'm taking my time, that sort of thing, until eventually, like, the feelings grew, and the rest is history. So when that helps, you're helping another person, you're also helping yourself that way. So, like, more often than not, when it comes to like rejections and stuff, is usually due to all these misread cues. When you thought, like, when
Yeah.
I thought that she liked me, tapi actually
Yeah.
rupanya tak, like, but what was, why did she call me every time? Why did she, every time that there was something, she called me, she seemed to want me, or needed me in her life,
And,
or
and a
something like
man
that.
and a man would take that as really strong signs.
They would think that, like, yeah,
Signals.
you need me, like that kind of thing, right? So it's quite important how we communicate with people lah. Macam, like you said in the beginning, and we have to enunciate that narrative, is understanding and knowing what our batasans are. I just plural batasan. What our like,
Sense.
what's the word that you used just now? Was it, what are our
Boundaries, principles.
boundaries? Yeah, that's right. What are our boundaries? I was going to say borders, and I was like, no, that doesn't sound right.
Okay, so we've covered quite a bit. We spoke about dating apps, we spoke about social media, we spoke about waiting, we spoke about rejection, we spoke
Yep.
about just before Lisa spoke about social cues, and we spoke a great deal also about intentions when we go into this endeavor to look for a partner. So guys, stay positive, keep a good attitude when you go into these things.
Keep the faith.
Don't be too hard on yourself too. Yeah. If you've been on an app for a long time and nobody has matched with you perfectly, it's really not your fault. You've done your part. Sometimes it's a matter of timing, and you need to trust in God's perfect timing. Okay.
Oh,
So keep the
sure.
faith,
Yeah.
keep the faith, keep the faith. Stay
Keep
positive,
the faith.
smile a lot, love yourself, work on building yourself. To me, these are the things that you should do while waiting for something to happen instead of waiting passively. Right, Lisa?
Oh, wow. That's a good reminder. Thanks for that, Ustaz.
Okay, so that is all for today's episode. Thank you for tuning in, for listening. I hope that's been
I enjoyed that. I
beneficial.
learned so much about today. The whole dating app thing, new age dating. Gosh.
Maybe that's something you need to prepare for your kids' generations, Lisa.
Anyways.
Am I scaring you too early?
Yeah.
Okay, guys, thank you.
All right.
We'll talk to you soon. Take care. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Assalamu alaikum, everyone.